So today I'm just going to tell you a little bit about our story of 2020 so far and what we've been doing over the last couple of weeks with our product and commercial strategies to cope with the current COVID situation that we all find ourselves in. Now, the first thing I want to say is I'm not putting this forward as a recipe in any way. I'm just simply here to tell you our story, what's working and what isn't working for us, and then maybe have some conversations afterwards and to share our learnings. So first of all, let me just kind of start with a little bit about what we do at Trickle. So our mission is to help employees to find their voice, to get the support they need in the workplace, to feel happier, healthier, and more valued at work. Now we are just over 2 years old. Our first year was basically testing the market for what we do, a bit of R&D, and then we launched the product just in February last year. Now since then we've won a number of quite high profile customers, including NHS Scotland, so we're working with a number of the health boards there, and also the Scottish Government and some of the Scottish Government agencies. We also do private sector work as well. Now last year we managed to raise just short of £1 million from a series of angels and also from a VC firm known as Techstart Scotland. So we've had some great support for getting our product off the ground. And our platform is basically a mobile app and a web app, and it consists of two different components. We've got Engage, which is all about providing a community forum for people to improve together within the workplace. And then we've got a new one that we've just built, which is called Confide, which is all about providing personal support for individual employee well-being. So I'm going to just start by talking a little bit about employee well-being, because this is something that affects us all probably that's here today, especially no more so than the situation we're all finding ourselves in, under the spotlight, whether you're employed or not. Now, in the last few months, we've been working with Western Bartonshire Council in Scotland. So they employ 5,000 staff, and they're using our platform to try and be more proactive in the way they support employee well-being. So instead of reacting to people once they're off, be more proactive in how they give people support and advice and guidance in advance of that. And at the start of our work with them, I was speaking to their people director, Alison, and she told me the story how she feels as she walks in her office every day. And she's worried that she's walking past people that need a bit of help or a bit of support, but she's got absolutely no clue on who these people are. And that's quite a common situation, especially when you look at stress and anxiety alone. Statistics in the UK show that 1 in 5 employees will take at least 1 day off a year because of feeling too stressed to work. Now for Western Bartonshire Council, that's about 1,000 people. But the worrying statistic is that 90% of people never admit that their absence is caused by a stress-related issue. So that's potentially 900 people in the council that need some help with their well-being, but will not seek support. And what that shows is that there's a real stigma associated with trying to get support in the workplace. And what we're trying to do is help people deal with that. But you can't help people until you know how they really feel. Now, Google did a really well-known study of their highest performing teams, which they ran over a 2-year period. And they looked at the teams to try and find out what they all had in common. And they came up with a term called psychological safety. And that was the teams where people felt they could speak up without fear of negative consequences. And all over the world now, organizations are striving to create psychologically safe workplaces, but that's really, really difficult to do because it takes quite a severe cultural change, and that's something that generally happens over time, kind of nudge by nudge. So what we need to do is we need to help people speak up, regardless of how psychologically safe our workplaces actually are. And we've built a number of tools to do that, which I'm just going to give you a quick demonstration of. So here you can see something that we call guidance. And what this is doing here, this is the council saying to their gardeners, you know, the winter's coming, the ground is getting more solid. Generally, their gardeners get a bit more injured at that point in the year. So they're saying, look, do you feel physically fit to do your job? And what the system does is, based on them answering negatively, then it says, okay, we want to refer you to a physio, and they can click that button and it takes them straight into a link to get a physio appointment. On the other hand, if they were feeling good, then it says, great, but remember, here's the manual handling training videos if you need to refresh how you should be doing your job differently in the winter. So what this is doing is essentially trying to give people some information that's much more relevant to them at a point in time based on the role that they're doing, instead of saying, here's a system that's got a massive library of advice and guidance in it, and go in here and look for things when you need them. So it's about being very targeted and proactive about employee well-being. The second thing I want to just quickly show is a thing that we call flares. And this is about allowing employees to raise concerns that they have about their personal situation that they maybe cannot raise in person, or they're not comfortable to raise in person. Now, obviously, with a lot of us working at home at this point in time, it's just physically impossible to raise a lot of things in person anyway. So in this example, you might have fallen out with your manager, and you obviously can't speak to your manager about it, and you don't really know who to speak to. So you can raise a flare, you can remain anonymous, you do it from your phone, and you write your message. So, hey, I've fallen out with my manager, it's getting me down, I don't know who I should speak to. And you then choose a category for that issue, in this case, my manager, and it then offers you a selection of people that you can speak to about this. Now, you wouldn't choose your manager, you wouldn't choose your manager's manager potentially, but you might choose someone that's on the list that you maybe don't work with day to day. And from that point, you can then start getting into a dialogue where you can explore your situation, you can give a little bit more information, and the person on the other line who is trained and able to give you advice and guidance for that scenario can help you through it. And the other area that we help people with is just generally engaging with their employees. And this was quite a famous study by Bain & Company, where 1,000 organisations were asked to measure the productivity difference between those that were satisfied and inspired. And what that showed was that inspired employees are 2.25 times more productive than those who are simply satisfied. So organisations are using our tools to try and help people get nudged up that engagement scale, if you like, by providing inspiration to each other and stories of success. And we do that through a number of tools that you can see in front of you just now. So for example, mood sense, which is all about, how are you feeling? It might be, how do you feel about the current home working setup? It helps you get really quick opinions on how your employees are feeling about certain things. And then from there, you can go into suggestions and exploring things a bit deeper. So, okay, the home working isn't working great. Tell us what we could do to improve that. You can optionally post anonymously. So it's about real-time feedback. And especially in a moment like now, when organizations are changing the way they work almost every day, it's about what's working well, what isn't. We also have fist bumps, because if you can praise individuals, so this is about saying to someone, hey, thanks for helping me out. Harder to do it when we're working remotely. And it's also a really good sign of the morale being good within an organization if people are fist bumping each other. And then the last thing is shout abouts, which are spreading news or stories of success and the new ways of working that we're all getting used to. So what I want to do now is just talk about our year. So we started 2020 quite well. We'd raised our money just towards the end of last year, and we started to recruit some new staff. And we were just about to push out our new Confide module that we just talked about there for personal wellbeing. And we were on the Scottish Government CivTech programme. So 4th of March it was, we stood up in front of 500 people at the EICC, and we talked about our new Confide product, and we talked with Western Berkshire Council about how that can help you. And then a week later, I did a keynote at the Public Sector Smarter Working Summit. And again, we've got some really positive feedback. And as a result of those events, we had 40 organisations who booked in with us to engage and say, listen, we want to look at doing a pilot of Trickle. Now, that number is quite significant for us, because in the first few months of the product release, we managed to get up to about 20 paying customers, albeit some of those are obviously large organisations. So to have 40 people or 40 organisations wanting to speak to us, we were feeling pretty chipper. And then literally 2 days later, the COVID news was, look, everyone needs to spend at least a couple of weeks working from home. So we're sitting looking at this kind of opportunity we've got, and we're saying, okay, what do we do next? I mean, there's 40 organisations that say they want to talk to us, but who genuinely is going to engage with us, within the first few days of us all trying to respond to a crisis and a new way of working? So over the weekend, I was thinking about, before the home working started, I was thinking about how we could help that. And we were already working with NHS Scotland, as I said, and the Scottish Government, and the feedback we've had was really positive. Now, the thing where we were really lucky is that we'd raised our money, and that meant that we had runway for the rest of this year, and we'd made some assumptions that were essentially we were going to make a relatively small level of income. So this gave us a really good position where we could actually go out and say to people, look, if you think that Trickle can help you, then we're prepared to offer it completely for free to help you adapt to the workplace disruption that we're all facing under COVID-19. Now, the good thing about this is it's really aligned to our purpose and why we actually formed the business in the first place. We were creating an organisation that was about providing greater inclusivity and greater transparency in the way we work, and also trying to allow larger organisations to be a bit more agile. And there's been no period of greater uncertainty in our lifetimes, I would guess, of all the people that are here today, than the one we're facing right now. And that's when these types of things come to the fore. So we thought, right, let's see if we can get the product out. Let's help people for free. Let's get more people to use it and hopefully more people to love it. What's the worst thing that could happen as we do that? So I went in on a Monday morning. This was the last Monday that we were actually able to work together in the office. And we did go in that day because we had some new staff starting and we wanted to do a team lunch. And what we did at that meeting that morning was we discussed a plan to make Trickle free and to try and get out to people. And we tried to keep it really simple. I said to the organisation, I said, look, we've only got two types of jobs that are important to us in the next few months. One is making people aware that Trickle is going to be completely free to use. So we've got a bit of a marketing job. And the second is to make sure that people who sign up are loving it and getting real value from doing it. Now, the first thing we saw was this amazing response on social media. You can see some of the comments there. You know, we had some beautiful feedback about how it reflects the ethos of people in our organisation and how it was great leadership. And these are from really influential people, you know, in the NHS, etc. And what we saw was that some of our existing opportunities, the pace of those accelerated, whereas another load of opportunities were kind of pushed back with people saying, look, there's nothing we can do about this to engage with you during COVID. The one big difference we did see was that our inbound queries ramped up quite a bit, as you would expect, given that we were offering it for free. And also the general interest in what we were doing meant that we were having more conversations and more referrals. So we've now had this on offer for 2 weeks. Just to be clear as well, we've made this a genuinely free offer. It's not like a pilot where you get a contract and at the end of it, it says it now costs you X to move to this. The language in the contract that we deliver is all about free use. We changed that from pilot use, etc. So we made it as clear as we could that this was all about trying to help people out. So what have we found in the first couple of weeks of this? Well, we've probably had a split of 3 different types of organisations that we're working with, and they're probably fairly evenly split, 33% each. So the first type of organisation is those that are saying, listen, we need this right now. Can everyone please get out of the way? We don't want to talk about governance. We want to get this in, and we'll worry about how we follow up with the paperwork afterwards. And that's been brilliant. That's just organisations like, for example, some of the health service boards that are saying, our people need this tool, let's just do it. We've got a kind of middle category where they're saying, yep, we really want to do this now. We know we need to do this now. But actually, how do we get it up and running in the COVID situation? We had one organisation that said, don't worry, it's great. We've got a fast track deployment process. And when they went to look at that process, it consists of 20 sheets of A4 that they have to fill in. And they said, look, we need to try and get this down to kind of 2 or 3 pages. And that was our fast track process. So there's a lot of challenges like that in the governance side of things. And then we've got the last category of people that are like, you know, how could we possibly do this in a crisis? It's just not possible. And again, that's causing a lot of frustration within the organisations that we're dealing with, because there's people that know that this will help them. They know it's completely free, but they're faced with a culture and an organisation that prevents them from doing that. So what has this taught us? Well, one thing it shows is even if you want to give your product free to people with good intentions, you're still going to meet hurdles, especially in large organisations where they're not designed to be agile. They don't know how to do it in a lot of cases. And one of the things that we see is that there's fear of doing the wrong thing. Whereas the organisations that are managing well in this have got people who are winning because they fear ignoring the right thing. So I think that's quite an important difference. From us, what we're seeing is that the more we can get in front of people, the more conversations we can have with people, the more we are learning about the true opportunities we have and what are the real barriers to progress in those opportunities. And we're learning every day and kind of making decisions every day on the back of it. For example, our product plan, our roadmap was to deliver certain things in a period of time. And what we've found is because the way that people are using the product differently under COVID, For example, a lot of people are using Trickle as their primary communications method. If you think of some of the councils that we work with in the public sector, some of their workers, like people that are gardeners or that clean the streets or pick up rubbish collections, they don't even have email addresses that are in the council. Whereas with our app, they can be communicated with just through the phone or through the web by having a login through their personal email. So we're seeing quite a change to the way that people are using our product, and that's forcing us to look at our roadmap differently and make sure that we're being really agile with the way that we're delivering things. When I look at this, I look at what the real test is for success. You know, is this worthwhile? And the very first thing is, do we feel good about what we're doing? So absolutely we do. We're getting really, really nice support from people. We're getting great feedback, you know, word of mouth, folks saying, look, this is a really genuine free offer. You should speak to these guys because they're in it to help. And that makes us feel really good about what we're doing. The second thing is, that are people seeing the value in what we're providing? Are they realizing the benefits? And again, we can measure that based on the engagement we're getting with the platform, and we can also measure it based on the feedback we get in terms of, you know, changes that people want to see or new suggestions that they're making, which is great. And the third thing is that all feeds into learning about how we can make the product better, which is something we obviously want to do. So our feeling is, if we can tick these boxes, then we're going to be in a stronger position once this is all over. And hopefully when we get back to resume our conversations with these 40 organisations who were interested, and obviously some of them are still speaking to us, then they're hopefully going to see us and the way we conduct our business, the way that we deliver the platform in a new and an improved light. Thank you very much for listening today, guys.
Fantastic, Paul. Great. So we've got a couple of questions. So the first one from Ian Baxter, he asked the hard question, what's the plan to switch this to a paid model? And how long can you keep this free for?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. And so we started off by picking May the 3rd. So this was 2 weeks ago, and we kind of picked a 6-week period. And at that stage, it's quite hard to think back to what the world was like then, but it was basically, we're going to have to work at home for 2 weeks. You know, that was kind of the message we're being given. Now, obviously, things are moving on quite a bit. So we've been extending that out. And I think what we're ultimately going to do is split it between support for public and public health, and then support for other organisations. So we're going to prioritise that public health aspect, because this is going out to people that are in emergency departments, you know, people that are really on the front line, trying to make the country healthier and trying to keep it healthy. So we are offering those organisations, once we engage with them, extended periods beyond the initial offer, based on the fact that they are providing a public service. Whereas for other organisations, we're kind of just monitoring that period and we're rolling it forward. So as it is at the moment, we're just rolling it forward week on week. And it looks like it's probably going to run for the next 2 or 3 months, is probably the latest advice we're getting from the government, you know. So we will genuinely support it for free during that period.
Fantastic. Sophie, do you have questions?
Yes, I've got a few coming in here. So we've got one from Peter Henderson. What's the smallest business using Trickle at the moment?
So Trickle is about kind of having conversations across the community. So our gut feel when we built the platform was that below 50 people, it probably doesn't add a lot of value, because you're potentially in the same office and you can talk to each other quite easily. Now, obviously, COVID's changed that quite a bit. What we've found is that if an organisation is about 25 people, and especially if they're split across different locations and home working, then you can actually get value from the product. So our smallest organisation who's successful with it tends to be about 25 people in size, but the average size is in the hundreds.
Okay, great. I've got one from an Alex Owen Hill. Thanks for this. He asked, what are your thoughts on building trust in the tool itself, enough so that people will use it without fearing repercussions? So how do you do that, and how do you do that when you don't get to build trust, you know, in face to face with them or in the real world?
Yeah. So this is a really interesting challenge for us. So, for example, in the community engagement part of the product, you can be optionally anonymous when you post suggestions or post concerns. And I think when a lot of people see that initially, they fear that, okay, they're like, well, will people be able to find us? You know, I think they think there's a big dashboard that we can all look at and we can say, look, actually, that's Joe Blogs that said that. And that's not the case. So we took quite a difficult decision technically when we were building this, which is, if you're going to be anonymous, you're going to be truly anonymous, and there's nothing that we know about that person. And the reason we did that was to provide confidence to the organisations that this isn't about finding out who people are, but this is about finding out what the true challenges are within the workplace. And the response to that has been really positive. So when a company rolls out Trickle, what they do is they roll out a message from us and a statement from themselves, which basically says, look, Trickle don't know anything about you. And us as an organization, we're not doing this to try and find out who you are. We're trying to do this as a positive platform for us all to talk about the things that are most important. And over time, that builds trust. You know, once you've used that platform for 3 months and nobody's had any repercussions for that, then people see that building.
Fantastic. Sophie?
Yeah, we've got one. What's the action plan to handle organizations who don't continue with the app? Elsa Cook has said, you know, particularly thinking about the data and insights that you can gain from people not continuing to use the app.
Yeah, so we don't actually access any of the data ourselves. So our contract that we provide says that we can use statistics and we can use those anonymously. For example, you know, the number of people that engage and maybe the departments and things like that they're in, but we don't hold anything against an organization or use that for our own purposes. So the plan for those that don't continue would be that they terminate their use, and any of the data that's within the platform that's associated with their account would be eradicated from the system and deleted from the system.
Cool. And then in terms of how you're kind of capturing user feedback, how you did before the COVID situation and now, have you seen a massive shift in the feedback that you're getting on the product?
So we're only 2 weeks in, so it's quite hard to say, but we've got feedback mechanisms built into the product. So there's a enter feedback function, and that is used. It's used quite a bit. Sometimes it's just used for people saying, hey, enjoying this, which is great to see. We're only really into the first week of people using it under free use, because week 1 was much more about onboarding people. So far there's not a massive increase in feedback we're getting, but yeah, that might change over time.
More, Sophie? Have you got?
Yeah, we're okay for time. We've got a couple more if we can squeeze one in.
Yep.
So how do businesses, this is from Craig Manson, how do businesses make sense of the employee survey results? Is there a baseline for certain companies? How can you tell what's good and what's bad, or how does that develop?
Yeah, okay. So the first thing I say is it's kind of not a survey-based approach. In this talk that I've just done, you've probably saw the mood sense tool that we talked about. Now, these questions are asked by the organization. They're not questions that come from a database that we put out there. So in that sense, the organization can ask what's most relevant. In terms of the feedback, how they make sense of it, it tends to be very, very tangible things that are suggested within Trickle. Now, we don't see the content, but when we have a meeting with our customers to do reviews, they often share what their top 5 things are. And what Trickle does as a platform is it automatically ranks suggestions and concerns based on the impact to the community, based on the number of people that are interested and the individual impact that people think that will have. So those things tend to be things like, we think we will perform better if we meet once a week now that we're working remotely instead of once a month like we used to do before. And that piece of information is obviously a very tangible piece of feedback that has a ranking in the overall suggestions within your organization. So it's much more about giving you information that you can act on and that people can see that action in real time as it progresses towards a change, as opposed to just asking survey-based questions that people then might not see an impact from until sometimes later. It's about real-time feedback, real-time action.
Okay, well, I think we'll pause there. And we said we'd do this in half an hour, so we're going to try to see how you respond to all that. Hopefully give you a bit of time to stretch your legs over lunchtime as well. But the conversation doesn't finish here, it continues. These are our social channels, and the questions that you've already sent in, we will be putting to Paul, and we will share the answers across these channels in the coming day or two. If you have further questions, reach out to us on those channels, and also reach out to us with suggestions if you would like to speak, or if you would like to see us doing something slightly different to support the community.